The stream. Let me see here. Is everything good? I think so. All right, welcome back to the stream, everybody. Good to see you. How are you all doing? Yeah, so today we're going to be doing some more content. I actually stayed up way too late last night drawing something new, a new enemy card, which I will be showing you here shortly. But before we do that, we want to do the ads. So Alchemortis is available for wishlisting. It's a dark fantasy roguelite auto battler where you can create your own builds and synergies using alchemy. So if that sounds interesting, definitely check it out. You can also support me on Patreon. That funding will go a long way. I'm entirely self-funded. So yeah, every little bit helps. I did recently, if you're in the Discord, you saw that I dropped the lower tier from $5 a month to $3 a month. And I didn't change any of the perks, so it's the same perks that you got at the previous tier, it's just a little bit less expensive. So if you've been wanting to support, but the $5 price point was a little bit too high, then I've knocked it down. And this will be applied going forward. So anyone who's currently subscribed or who subscribed at the $5 tier, the next time you get billed, it will go down to $3. So everyone is getting that migration down to $3. But anyway, you could also support at the top tier here. It's a little bit more pricey, but you will get an Alchemortis Steam key when the game launches, and your name will be put in the in-game Alchemortis credits. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. I would appreciate that. And you could also go to Udemy, find my Udemy courses. Those are also linked below. These are also a great help for my funding as well. So if you've been wanting to learn how to make a game in the Godot engine, check those out. Purchase one of those. That would be appreciated. And that's it. All right, let's get right into it then. Hello, Clickertail. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Hello, Kelso. Welcome back. Good to see you. Ninja Link, good morning. Always good to see you. Hello, Artem. Welcome back. Are we just getting online? Yes, I just started the stream, so we're not even 10 minutes into the stream here. All right, so are you guys ready to see? Oh, I should mention one other thing about Patreon before I continue is that I am going to be posting more Patreon exclusive content. So just a little bit of extra incentive, I guess, for you. But I'm going to be posting stuff like pixel art time lapses. I will be doing some code deep dives, the Alchemortis code wall, where I will go through and kind of like give you an overview of what's happening with various systems. Other things might show up there as well, but I'm going to try to put more focus into getting the Patreon members some exclusive stuff. So it's just a little bit of, a little bit extra for supporting me. So anyway, I forgot to mention that in the intro. Anyway, let's take a look at what we got going on here. Hello, Wooiest, welcome. I stayed up last night working on a cathedral card, which is a 3x2 enemy card. So I think it turned out okay. Kind of a different. It took a while. I think I worked on it for close to 2 hours or something, which is not a whole lot given what the output is. But I was trying a different perspective, and I think it turned out pretty good. I think it's not. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. Very cool, thank you. Yeah, I think it's okay. So I'm not gonna stress too much over it. I think it looks great. Yikes. Do I want to merge this? I probably should just merge this. What is this one? Does this do anything? This one doesn't do anything. But, so anyway, the interesting thing about this piece of art is I installed a time-lapse tool for Sprite, which recorded every single change that I made to the sprite since I started it. So that will be one of the Patreon things that I'll be uploading, is just like a pixel art time lapse. I might do like a voiceover on it too. I don't know what I would say, but maybe the time lapse would be sufficient. But anyway, that'll be one of the things that will be showing up on the Patreon probably sometime this week. So there's like 1,800 frames or something, which is cool. All right, merge this down. Okay, so now I can get rid of all this and then outline it. We could take a look here. Let's see how it looks in game. This is loosely based off of Notre Dame Cathedral, however you say it. I looked at Google Images and I was like, cathedral, Gothic cathedral, and of course that's the Gothic cathedral, right? So, but it doesn't have like, I wanted to add like flying buttresses, which I may be able to do still, but yeah, there's just like, I don't know, there's not quite enough room here to do that. I might be able to make it work, but maybe not. Anyway, cathedral. All right, so we got cathedral here. We'll add the flavor text. How come I see some messages in the stream, but they are not appearing in the YouTube chat? Are you cross-streaming elsewhere? Yeah, I'm streaming to Twitch at the same time. So some of the messages are coming from Twitch. Like Ninja Link is coming from Twitch. Okay, this is an enemy item. This is a, maybe we'll make it relic and a ritual. Maybe we'll just make this an item for the last region only. Okay. So let's take a look at what that looks like in game. Now we need some abilities for the cathedral. That's the thing that we're going to need. I don't have any ideas for the cathedral at the moment. Yeah, that looks pretty cool in the game, I have to say. Can't complain about that. Alrighty. Alright, we need some dope abilities for this thing now. Via restream? No, I'm just streaming to both services from a single OBS instance on my PC. There's the multiple output plugin for OBS, which allows you to stream to multiple sites simultaneously. Of course, the downside of that is that, you know, your hardware needs to be good enough to basically do 2 live video encodings, right? But also you need to have your bandwidth good enough as well. But I've got gigabit upload, so bandwidth isn't a problem. And I've got a decently powerful video card as well, so everything's fine. How do you decide how you're going to rework Holy? I recall you mentioning you need to adjust it, but I haven't heard anything since. Yeah, I'm still thinking about how to rework Holy. I think I generally want to get away from situations where... So there's a problem, which is that like if I'm going to have enemy builds that specifically counter player builds, that needs to be an explicit part of the information presented to the player, right? So if I'm going to have like a holy build, counters physical builds basically, right? Counters any build where you're going to deal, like the skeletons deal damage. And if I'm going to lead into that, because it feels really bad to like one-shot yourself on the enemy if they're applying a lot of heal. But also there's like, yeah, there's like no counterplay to that, because the problem with this game is that I'm essentially asking the player to come up with a build and to min-max that build during a run. And if you encounter a combat scenario that's just a hard counter to that build, your run may just end right there, but like you had no way of planning around that, right? So I kind of have, I mean, there's two different ways to approach that. One way to approach it is to change the enemy board generation such that it focuses around a very specific synergy and then surface that in the combat encounters. So you can plan ahead and say, oh, holy is not going to be good for me, so I'm going to avoid that, right? Or we kind of get rid of all of these builds that the enemy is, or builds that are specifically designed to counter certain things like poison or damage or whatever. We just get rid of that and we just make all of the statuses that you could apply just buffs for your own board, right? So I don't know. I have to think about that. I want to make some changes to the enemy board generation anyway, and I may experiment a little bit with just trying to, like, when the board is generated, come up with a specific synergy that I want there to be, and then do a do the wave function collapse filtered down to only the cards that work with that synergy, right? So I may say, I want this to be a primarily damage-based board, so it will just get rid of all the things that either don't deal damage or don't scale off of damage. Or I want this to be a holy-based board, so that'll just be holy. And of course, there can be a gradient too, right? Like I could say, I want this board to be 60% holy and 40% damage, right? Or I want this board to be 30% heal and 50% fire and 20% damage. And so if I come up with those synergies ahead of time, what I can do is, instead of showing this giant list of items in the tooltip, I could just instead like note what the synergy is, right? So this is like got a lot of healing, or it's got a lot of damage, or it applies a lot of holy. And then you could still right click to inspect it. And then you could like look at the cards individually. So I don't know, that's gonna be like the next main area of experimentation, is like fine tuning the enemy encounters. And I think whatever holy ends up being is gonna be largely influenced by that, but we'll see. I think it should be defensive and maybe scale with the number of humans on the board. That could work. How many months or years are you going to develop your game, Firebelly? You're going to extend it for more improvement? I'm pretty set on releasing the game before the end of the year. I don't want to drag it out because I've already, like, my original goal was by summer of this year, and then I'm like, well, it needs a little bit more time. So I don't want to extend it any more than I need to. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to take the game as it is and not like add any new complexity to it, and just try to like tweak and fine tune the systems that are already here. And I think that will be fine because I think the game is fun. I think the bones are there, and a lot of the remaining issues are like quality of life issues or balance issues. And so yeah, I'm just going to spend basically from now until the end of development, it's just going to be new content and tweaking the balance and the experience and all that stuff. Hello, Junie. Welcome back. Good to see you. Okay, we do need... what? We need abilities for this. Does anyone have any ability ideas? Let's take a look at my ability idea list. I should have planned this morning, but it's all right. What is your approach to pixel perfect pixel art? What is the native resolution of the project, and do you scale pixel fonts? Native resolution is 640 by 360, and there's only one place where I'm scaling pixel fonts, and that is when there's the crit text. The crit text is 2x multiplier on the base font size. But I don't really like doing that because that kind of throws the pixel size off. So I may change that, but I generally try to avoid scaling the pixel fonts if I can help it. And pixel perfect pixel art. I mean, it's already pixel perfect, right? If you just draw it at that resolution or draw it to fit that resolution. It would just become like pixel imperfect at certain screen sizes that are not whole integer multiples of your base canvas size. But I don't think that's really a big deal. Like when I run the game, like this is a perfect integer scale of the game. This is a 1920 by 1080 window here. So this is pixel perfect, but then if I maximize it because it's not fully full screen, this is not pixel perfect, but you can't really tell. I mean, the resolution is high enough where it's like, you're not going to notice that like one pixel somewhere over here is like scrunched up a little bit, you know? So I'm not being like super particular about it. Gain 1 defense for each allied minion, gain 2 defense for each allied minion instead if there are 3 or more adjacent clergy items. We could do that. 640, it's kind of base, yeah. All right, let's do cathedral. Shield. Query target provider. Options. Did I do this wrong? Options. Options dot. I wonder if we should just make it affect the whole board. I'm going to change this. This is going to be interesting. Query directions is equal to... No, not the whole board. We could do 2 things, actually. Let's do board inventory component dot query directions dot entire board. Options dot tag filter is equal to card tag dot minion. Okay. Var clergy target provider is equal to query target provider dot create options. This would be adjacent, and this would be secondary card tag. Secondary tag filter. Okay. So query target provider, clergy target provider. Do I just want to do a var generic value provider? Generic value provider. We're going to do var shield. Let's do this. Const int. Oops. Base shield is equal to 1. Const int. Additional. Let's do bonus shield, actually. Bonus shield is equal to 1. Okay, and then we're going to do what? Var current shield. Get away from me. Var current shield is equal to base shield. Actually, let's do bonus shield multiplier. Okay. All right. Var shield multiplier is equal to clergy target provider dot get value. Let's do required clergy const int required clergy for bonus 3 greater than or equal to required clergy for bonus shield multiplier 1, and then we're going to return current shield times shield multiplier. Current shield times shield multiplier query target provider dot get value times current shield times shield multiplier. No, generic value provider does not go there, and this needs to be an int. Dynamic shield is equal to new dynamic magnitude ability. This will be the generic value provider, new shield 0. Okay. Project to adjacent allied relics, passive, immune to paralysis. Project to adjacent allied relics, passive, immune to exhaust. Deal 1 true damage for each application of holy since last execution. Those are all good. It squished the text. That's all right. Plus armor for each minion makes sense to me. Steam page looks great. Did you commission that? Yes. Yes. The store page. So my pledge to you is that everything that is player facing, from the Steam page assets to the Steam page description to the Steam page videos and trailers to everything in the game, everything that you're going to see as a player is not going to be AI generated. Everything you're going to hear as a player is not going to be AI generated. Basically, any of the content that you're going to experience in the game, starting with the store page and through the experience of the game, none of that will be AI generated. So somebody already, like, I'm not blaming them because, like, they have to be careful about this, but somebody already said, oh, is that an AI, capsule art? No, it is not an AI capsule art. I paid good money for that. An actual artist, a very talented artist, went through multiple revisions with him, and it turned out great. So I'm very happy with it. Very happy with it. And welcome back, Courier Games. Also had a great moment yesterday where I realized that something I thought was going to be really hard will actually be fairly easy. I think that was the last big mechanic that I needed. Awesome. Yeah, that's a great feeling, for sure. Should go work on my game some more, yeah. Well, sometimes life gets busy, right? Lost an almost entire year because I was focused on my job, yeah. Well, the unfortunate thing is things need to be prioritized, and, I'm fortunate enough where my number one priority in terms of professional stuff is this game, but that was not the case always for me, and probably, or not probably, but may not be the case always for me. Priorities are priorities, and sometimes we don't get to do the things that we want to do, and that's just how it goes. Can you talk about game scope and how big your game is, and do you feel sometimes that you made a narrow scope game? Not enough content? No, I had the opposite problem with this game. This game was supposed to be very narrowly scoped, and it kind of ballooned in scope. And I talked about this before, but I wanted to keep it a very small game. But the problem was that as I started making it, and as I started putting all the systems in place, I realized that this game had a ton of potential, and I didn't want to be in a situation where, I just kind of artificially made the game really small because I didn't want to spend a bunch of time on it. I would have felt bad about doing that compared to trying to realize the potential that it had. And so trying to realize the potential that this game has necessarily ballooned the scope quite a bit. But that's fine. This game was only supposed to take less than a year to make, and we're a year and 2 months in, year and 3 months almost, I guess. No, a year and 2 months in. And probably will be a year and 8 months, year and 9 months by the time it releases. So a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but yeah. I don't know how, I just don't know. I don't know how you strike that balance. If you set out to make a very small, narrowly scoped game, and then you realize that the game has a bunch of potential, I don't know how you manage that. I would feel bad if I just said, well, that game could have been like really, really, really good if I had spent another year on it, but oh well, I'm just going to release it in 9 months anyway. That would feel really bad, wouldn't it? I don't know. I don't know. Hello, old Pacheco. What are we doing today? We're just doing more content. We're still in that 10-day window where I'm trying to do 3 new items per day for 10 days. Tomorrow is the last day of doing that. So I need to do 3 items today, and I need to do 3 items tomorrow. And then that will be it for my little content sprint. Probably will do another content sprint in the future, but that'll be it. Would you be willing to share who you commissioned? I would be very interested. Yeah, I'm in the process. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal that information or not. So I am in contact with the artist, seeing if he would like me to tell my community, you know, his information. At the very least, the social media information so that you can all follow him. But yeah, I mean, he's very busy. He has other things on his plate, so it would be understandable if he would be like, no, please don't advertise my information because I just can't take on like new work or deal with the influx of messages, you know what I mean? So left a dangling comma in abilities. Really fun seeing you set up abilities, by the way. Thank you, Zaffo Breeblebox. That's a fun name. Oh, Zaphod Breeblebox. Yeah, we're not done with this ability. I'll clean this stuff up when I get there. I kind of just like work top down, but maybe the actual artists use AI. I don't think so because I have the PSD file with all of the layers. So unless there's a new AI tool that can generate a very convincing PSD file that has all the layers with the different layers of the digital painting, which I guess is possible, but no, this is yeah. I'm very, very, like, I'm 99.999% confident that this artist did not use AI at all. Can never be totally sure about anything, but I'm as sure as I can possibly be. A Windrose, yeah. I wanted to keep it a very small game. The reason my game, so you're beating that number, make the best thing you can, all things be damned. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Activision be like, release small scope, the rest is DLC. Can't you apply that potential into the update? I mean, you can release it early and give further future on the updates, but it depends on the philosophy though. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just, you know, it's a judgment call, like what can be released as is and what can be added to the game. I think the problem with releasing it, so the potential that I was seeing in the game and that I still see in the game is like, I think it would meaningfully, like if I had released the game a year ago and then started adding all this like extra potential, or not a year ago, but like 6 months ago or whatever, all this new stuff that I'm adding is actually changing the game quite a bit. So I don't know, you know, I don't know if it's a good idea to release a game to people, have them purchase it, and then like radically change the game in patches, you know what I mean? Like I don't think that the core experience of the game should change with patches, unless of course it's an early access game, which I guess is a route I could have gone as well, but yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. How did you find decent folk to commission? Yeah, I can share all that later. You may lose people if it isn't good from the start. Yeah. The other thing to consider too is like this is kind of like the last game that I can make before I find out if I need to go find another full-time job or not. So might as well just go all in on it, see what happens, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if it does work, then that would be great. Okay, dynamic shield. Shield per minion. I'll put the dynamic shield here. Okay, scaling funk. Ability. Scalars.get shield scalar. Current shield is equal to scalar base shield tier. I think that's fine. I don't think I need to do anything here. Description template. Apply. 0 description keywords dot armor per query target provider dot to query string template 1. This is a mess. If there are at least clergy query target provider dot to query string template 2, adjacent secondary description utils. Can I do clergy here? Description keywords. No, I actually don't need that. Apply. Goodness gracious. Okay. So this would be current shield. We will do null here. I actually don't know how this is going to work. If I put a limit up here, what does that do? Options.limit is equal to required clergy for bonus. Okay, so that's 2. So this is current shield times bonus shield multiplier, and then I think, is that right? Hold on a second. Oh no, this would be required clergy for bonus. Okay. Goodness gracious. Card cathedral shield per minion. Well, it's a little bit wonky. It's a little bit unwieldy, but that's all right. Okay, dynamic shield. All right. Oh, I put these in the wrong spot. Okay. Let's build the translations. I should be able to just read this and see if it generated the string properly. All right, let's see. Apply 0 armor per allied minion item. I need to fix the items there. If there are at least 3 adjacent allied clergy items, apply 3 armor instead. Okay, cool. So I just need to fix this one, and then it will be fine, I think. Force card singular true. It's a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. I have a potentially fun ability that may or may not be useful for this item. Project a random enemy item without this ability. Each time an ally ability is projected to this item, paralyze this item for 0.5 seconds. Project to a random enemy item without this ability. Would that work? Let me think. Yeah, I could potentially do that. Let me think. I think that would work. We could try it. We can see how it works, and if it takes a bunch of extra technical effort, then maybe not, but... I wonder, yeah, because there's a confusion here, right? There's like the execution of the projection of that ability, but then it like passively, that projected ability is passive, right? So would it be projecting that passive ability every time it executes? Probably not. We'd probably want it to have it such that like on combat start, it projects that ability to something. And then that passive ability would remain for the duration of that combat. And I don't know if that's, is that exactly how I have my passive set up? I don't think so. Cat. Thank you, Snupbill, for the IDR 10,000. Very much appreciated. Thank you, with the message yummers. We all like that message, don't we? Thank you, Snupbill. Welcome back. Always good to see you. I'm debating about the concept of early access. Probably only matters if you already have a community. Yeah, I think early access, and I think this is what like Chris Z says too, is like early access is your release. So early access is not really like you don't use early access for like a demo or like a really buggy, unfun game, and then you say, hey, we're gonna fix it over time. Early access is really for like, hey, this game is like basically complete in terms of the features, and like here's the gameplay loop, and then the only thing that we're going to do during the early access period is like tweak things and add more content and stuff. So early access is really just like a little flag that basically says there's more content coming. It's not necessarily supposed to be used for like you don't know where the game is going and you're just using it for feedback. Figured it could do it per execution and be nerfed later. Oh yeah, that might work. I don't know. We can maybe give it a shot and see how that would look. Anyway, did I fix this? I don't think I rebuilt this yet. Rebuild the translations. There we go. So that's singular now. Let's give it a shot. I should probably put apply 1 armor per allied minion item. If there are at least 3 adjacent allied clergy items, apply 2 armor. Oh, this should say shoot. Okay. Build the translations. Let's take a look at it again. Should probably just add the cathedral to my project settings so I don't have to type it every time. Let's also just add some, let's do a cathedral. And then let's do the Inquisitor. Okay, we'll just do a bunch of Inquisitors. Let's see how that goes. Early access occupies a weird and special place on Steam nowadays. Yeah. Budge. We almost got it. We almost got it. Building these strings is kind of like kind of iffy, but it's all right. I can deal with it. Once the strings are there, they're not going to have to change unless the ability changes. Apply 1 armor per allied minion item. If there are at least 3 adjacent allied clergy items, apply 2 armor per allied minion item instead. Okay. So this should be doing 6, right? There we go, 6. Okay, add item, cathedral, 5. Apply 10, oh my gosh. Apply 10 armor per, oh, that's per allied minion. Interesting. That might be a little bit powerful, but that's all right. We'll just leave it. Auto-resolve, sell the cathedral. It's fine. If it's overtuned, that'll be all right. Yeah, it's probably all right. Okay. I just prefer the concept of releasing the completed thing from the get-go. Like, I would want people who play to know that I'm not half butting anything. I don't know if I'm supposed to YouTube, you know. But yeah, I get you. Given it is region 3, I don't think that's too bad. Usually region 3 gets stomped anyway. Yeah, I mean, I think I have made a bunch of changes to player power since the last playtest. But we've got one cathedral ability. Do we want to try that one? Project a random enemy item. Project to a random enemy item without this ability. Passive each time. How would that one work? Let me think about this. How would I do that? Each time an ability is projected to this item. So I need to know when an ability gets projected to the item. So I would need some kind of listener for that. Let's see, ability. Add projected composed abilities. So yeah. If I wanted to make that work, I would need to notify from here that the target received the projection. I will write this down as a potential ability to implement, but I think there's going to need to be quite a lot of technical work to get that working, but I'll have to investigate that. I think I'm going to do something a little bit simpler for this one. Maybe we'll just do like project holy or something. Do we have project holy? Does the bishop do that already? Actually, there's an easy way to check this. Don't crash. Oh, it didn't crash. Thank goodness. Okay, so this one does project holy, but it's a different... It's got some more specific querying there. So I think we could do this. So we could do ability builder, project ability, translation key, card cathedral project holy. We're going to do ability builder holy 2, query target provider, adjacent card tag dot relic, project holy. Okay, we'll let that build. And then we have to generate the translations. Okay. Hopefully that works. Didn't know this was a Christian stream. I'm just trying to avoid YouTube having any reason to knock me down. Adjacent allied relic items. Okay, that is working. Cool. I want to see if that actually ends up getting generated in any enemy boards as well. Apply dimensions, we'll just do 3000 here. Region 2. There's a cathedral. So it's not getting the clergy bonus. That almost got the clergy bonus. That also almost got the clergy bonus. Doves are not clergy, so that's not... Yeah, so it's almost never getting the clergy bonus. So this is why I need to work on the algorithm here. It seems to not do a very good job when it has multiple conditions to satisfy, so... That ability is basically almost never going to take effect. There's 2 clergies. Oh, if only the priest was there instead of the oil barrel. Yeah, it's basically never getting 3 clergy items. Okay. I will have to think about that. I think what I want to do now is, I think the cathedral needs like 1 more ability. Maybe some kind of really cool innate ability for it. So what kind of innate ability can we do? What kind of innate ability can we do? How does it work exactly? It seems like enemy builds could be stronger by picking a single capstone item and then building the board around that. Yeah, I mean, I think that is one of the things that I'm going to experiment with. The problem is like identifying capstone items, right? Because like some items just do very basic damage, and so those would have to be filtered out. So the question is, how can I just like generically identify an item that would be a good candidate for a capstone item and then build around that? You know what I mean? But that may be the approach that I try to take. And we can see how that goes. The problem with that is that I have a feeling that that may reduce the prevalence of some items a lot. Like, I think that would generally create stronger, more coherent boards for the enemy. But I have a feeling that there is going to be some items in the game that basically almost never appear as a result. That's just a hunch that I have. I need to test that for sure. But I think that could probably be solved by doing something like, okay, here's the capstone item, And then, you know, at least half of the board needs to be filled with items that directly or indirectly synergize with that capstone item. And then the remaining empty portions can just be like, you know, randomly, not purely randomly chosen, but can have like their own like little sub synergies or something. Yeah, we're gonna have to think about that for sure, but I definitely want to do some work on that here soon and see if I can figure that out. But we need a cool innate ability for the cathedral. Well, let me think on it a little bit. But I'm open to suggestions on what an innate ability can be for the cathedral. But I am going to take a quick 3-minute break here. So I'll be right back in just 3 minutes and we'll figure it out. All right, BRB. All right, I'm back. Sorry for the delay. Let's see. What if you gave it a higher cooldown and then passive? Each time a clergy item executes, reduce the remaining cooldown of this item by 1 second. Innate passive, reduce incoming damage stats from undead items. Well, I mean, the cathedral, let's see. I don't think I can reduce the incoming damage stats from undead items directly. I don't really have the support for that, but I can do something that's very similar. Like I could heal for like half of the total damage dealt by undead items. Something like that. So it's like a very, very obvious counter to undead items, especially undead items that deal damage. I mean, we have a lot of empty ability slots, so I'm not opposed to adding 2 innate abilities. So why don't we just do that? We just add both of them. I am going to modify yours a little bit, Junie. I think Ninja Link's is doable because I actually already made an item like that. The Ancient Tree here. The Ancient Tree, whenever an allied item deals damage, it reduces the remaining cooldown by 1. And actually, I should probably... Yeah, that's fine, actually. By 0.1 seconds. So every time an ally deals damage, it reduces the remaining cooldown by 0.1 seconds. Each time a clergy item executes. So that's a little bit different. Whenever a clergy item executes. Do I have a way of tracking that? I refactored this a little bit. So we've got an event tracker. This tracks a specific type of event happening, and then I have an on triggered. I do have ability type. Where is that ability tracker? Ability execution tracker. Ability executed event. So I may be able to make a card. Let me think. Yeah, let me try. Oh, shoot. I'm going to have to do a new event tracker here, I think, for tracking certain card executions. Do I need to do that? Yeah, because it needs to respond immediately. So the problem is, anything that doesn't need to respond immediately can read data from the turn history, but because the cooldown will be in progress, the cathedral cooldown will be in progress when clergies are executing, it can't necessarily read the turn history. So I need an event tracker. Let's see, event tracker. Eye damage dealt listener. Eye ability execution listener. I'm gonna need probably another interface. I'm realizing now that I probably don't... I can probably move this out. I don't need to reconstruct that list every time. I think I can just put it here. And this would be execution context. Execution context. The only situation where this would fail is if I was dynamically adding items to the board during combat, but I don't think I'm going to do that. So that can go away. Maybe we'll rename this to all combat cards. Okay, so this would be all... So let's just change this to ability listeners. That will be clearer. And then damage listeners. So after this loop here, what I would need to do is emit that execution. So let's do I card execution listener. I will probably just borrow I ability execution listener. Just borrow this. We don't need this and we don't need that. So we got the I card execution listener. So I'm going to want all combat cards select. We'll just go ahead and grab all this. Card execution listeners is equal to that. Of type I card execution listener. Okay, for each var so this is selecting a tuple, right? Okay. For each of our listener and listener abilities, on card executed. Oh, I don't have the enhanced execution context. Right, because the enhanced execution context that has some execution state in it, which is fine. So we just want to make this the base execution context. That should fix that. Okay. I think that's it. Okay. Ability execution tracker. So I'm going to create sort of just like the same thing here. So this would be card execution tracker. Namespace game.data.ability. Public class card execution tracker. Card executed event. So we create the event data here, get init. Okay. So we can create a static I don't think I actually need this. I think this is fine. Is that all I need to do? I think that's all I need to do, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look at the ancient tree here. So I did not make this one passive from the ancient tree. Why didn't I make that passive? Oh, because the query target provider needs to run. I guess I'll just follow that pattern. So new composed ability. I guess that makes sense. So I do need a query target provider, and I'll tell you why in a second. But since this is only going to work with undead items that have dealt damage, this may actually be a little bit difficult. Wait a minute. Wait, I'm doing the reduced cooldown. Oh, each time a clergy item executes. Right. Okay, I'm getting the two mixed up. Right. Okay. We're going to do reduced clergy cooldown. So this is going to be query target provider dot create options entire board card secondary card tag filter. All right, so var card execution tracker is equal to new card execution tracker. Okay, let's do filter X. Yes, get card for board listener card is equal to x.execution context dot get board for card x.execution context dot base card. I'm going to make this an actual method here so I can is same, or we could do is ally. So that's going to do the is ally check, and then we're going to say, I guess I don't really need to, I was going to use the query target provider for this. So I was going to do var matches query is equal to query target provider dot card query options dot card matches query filters. I don't need that. I guess that's kind of like, well, is that overkill? I think I do need this query target provider here because the wave function collapse uses this to determine what the synergies are. So card matches query filters x.execution context dot base card. Okay, so basically what this is saying is that whenever a card executes, we want to make sure that it's an ally of the current card that's listening. And we want to make sure that it's a clergy item, and we're going to do that through the query target provider there. And then on triggered, I'm going to copy basically what was here. So on triggered, so we have the event. I'm basically just going to take this. Now this is the weird part. I don't have a way of like explicitly changing the card tooldown. I basically have to rerun the life cycle a bunch of times. which should be okay, but it's a little bit weird. So const int cooldown reduction per clergy execution is equal to 1 second, which is 10. Okay, so let's do this. Oops. Okay, so card executed event. Add card to rerun lifecycle list, listener card. But this is the weird part. Var I equals 0, I is less than cooldown reduction per clergy execution I++. We basically just add it to this rerun lifecycle list. Every time we want to reduce the cooldown by 0.1 seconds, we add it to the rerun lifecycle list. So this is adding 10 entries to the rerun lifecycle list, but I think that's just the cleanest way to do it because then I don't have to worry about managing different like parallel behaviors. So it's just piping it back through the card lifecycle functions basically. But it's doing that 10 times because it needs to reduce it by a second. So it needs to do 10.1 second reductions basically. It's a little bit weird, but you know, that's how it goes. And then I got to catch up on the chat, I know, but let me just get this. Okay, so we've got the query target provider, and then we've got the card execution tracker. We do this. Just be consistent there, I suppose. Scaling. I don't think we're going to add a scaling func here. Goodness gracious, you all are making me do all these complicated abilities. Get rid of this, basically. Okay, so we'll just fill out the description and we'll be good. I have to set this as innate. Whew! Hello, Alien Archer. As always, working. Respect you a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that. Welcome back to the stream. Could you project reduced cathedral cooldown onto clergy instead? I could, yeah. I think I could. Hello, Artem. Or I think I already said hello to you. We do not have those in GDScript traits. Maybe someday, yeah. Maybe someday. GDScript will get there, I think. Hello, Desidev. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Why do you prefer coding in C# than GDScript if you use Godot? Well, if you just watch that little bit, I mean, there's a lot going on here that would be hard to do in GDScript, I think. So I've got a card execution tracker, which is a concrete implementation of an event tracker, which is an abstract class that basically just tracks certain types of events. But the way that the event is invoked is through a specific type of interface. Abilities that extend that interface are fetched in the base card, and then I call the interface's execution method on that with the proper context. So anyway, like, even just this little system that I'm doing right here to enable me to listen for when clergy items execute and respond to that on the cathedral card, that whole thing would be kind of a mess to do in GDScript, I think. Because, like, I think abstract classes are a thing now in GDScript, but interfaces are not. And so, yeah, it's just a little bit weird. I mean, you could do it. I mean, everything is possible in GDScript, but it's just a matter of, like, what is going to make more sense? Does the C# code make more sense to accomplish this, or does the GDScript code make more sense? And I think the answer is the C# code. So you get all this additional structure that really helps when you're trying to make more complex systems. But yeah, it's time for more game content once again. Yes, indeed. Hello, Jackie Daytona, welcome. Part of the fun is coming up with ability ideas that make you refactor the code, yeah. Stream says too many complicated abilities noted, suggest even more, yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. Okay. I want to make sure that my wording is correct here too. Reduce the remaining cooldown of this item by description utils.time format 0 seconds whenever an allied you know what I might do is I might make this a placeholder as well. Okay. We're going to put reduce cooldown first. I think that's correct. Good morning, the malicious rabbit. Welcome back. No hello for me. Oh, I thought you were already in the stream. Sorry, Emerson. Welcome back. Welcome back to the stream. Always good to see you. All right, let's make sure that that got written properly. Reduce the remaining cooldown of this item by 0 seconds whenever an allied item oh yeah, I need to add the description keywords.clergy. Goodness gracious. All right, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Ultimately, that was pretty simple to implement. It's just I didn't have support for listening for card execution specifically, but now that's supported and I can do more abilities with that. That's the nice thing about this system is that once I support the first case of doing something like that, then I already have the framework in place to do more abilities like that, like more abilities that need to listen actively for items executing. Reduce the remaining cooldown of this item by 10 seconds. That's not correct. That is not correct. This needs to be description utils dot magnitude to seconds. I always forget to do that. So because it's weird, like every step of 1 in a cooldown is 0.1 seconds, right? So 10 is 1 second. But I have to convert that, right? So this magnitude to seconds is basically just taking that magnitude and multiplying it by the seconds per turn, which is 0.1. So it's just, you know, little helper methods to do those things. Anyway. May the alchemists bless you. How does your translation system work? I'll probably do a deep dive on that. So the basic idea is this. The translation file is just basically a set of keys and strings, right? And there are certain like plural forms that you can support, whatever. So this is a PO file. This is for a tool called getText, which is a Unix tool, I believe, for handling translations. And basically it's like a dictionary, right? You've got keys for your strings, and then you have the language, you know, the locale string here. So what I would do is I would hand this translation file to a translator, and they would change all of the English text that is in the message string value here, but they would leave the keys alone. And then translating the game is just a matter of swapping out this file. So this is like the English PO file, then you would have like the French PO file, and you just swap those out and then the language changes. But in terms of how this file is generated, so basically I'm taking a code first approach to the translation. What the naive way I think of doing translation is I just maintain a translation file myself and I just keep adding manual entries to it. But of course I don't want to do that for a number of reasons. One, now I have to go to a separate text file that's super long, and I have to go and edit the strings in there, right? And then whenever I change an ability, I have to go back and do that as well. I don't want to do that. So I took an approach where my code is the source of truth for basically all the strings, except for the things that are like just baked into the scene files themselves. I have to manually transition those over. But any text that is in a resource file, like the card name or the card flavor text, or anything that is an ability description, which is like hard-coded in the C#, I basically have a translation generator scene that gets run as a standalone. And all that it does is it iterates through all of those things in the game. So artifacts, abilities, description keywords, all that stuff. And it builds that PO file because it's a very predictable file. It's basically just key value pairs, right? So I just iterate over every system in the game and grab the relevant strings and spit those out into a giant PO file. And for the ability specifically, it's not actually that complicated. All I do is I iterate over every single item in the game, every single card in the game, and then I create the card, and then I iterate over its abilities, and I pull out all of those properties that you see me setting up here. So like description, translation key, description template, all that stuff. So I'm pulling that out. So the description translation key is the ID, the text is the template singular or the description template, and then if there's a plural text, it adds the plural. And then it goes through the nested abilities, so on and so forth. But that's very easy. I'm just creating a bunch of these PO entries, and then once this giant list of PO entries here, which is divided into sections for no particular reason, but ultimately it's a giant list of PO entries, that all just gets concatenated into a giant string and then written to a file. That's basically it. So the benefit of doing it this way is that I can do things like... So you see this query target provider to query string template. So what I can do is I can still dynamically build English language strings based on what the query parameters are. So I can be more consistent with my language, right? If I'm leveraging the query string as a way of generating specific language, then I'm always using the same language every time I'm trying to describe how an ability queries something else, right? And because this is all done at runtime, that's why I needed to do a tool that basically is a runtime that loads up all the abilities. Those abilities will have all of those strings replaced in the way that they need to be replaced. And then I can take that final string and dump it into the PO file. And then when a translator comes along, they just need to rewrite that phrase. Now, that is going to be a problem if I ever go in and change something, like if I change how a query works for a certain ability. The translations will all need to be updated, but that's kind of like out of my control. Like that's going to be a thing anyway, right? Like anytime any text in the game changes. But the primary concerns are I want to be consistent with my language, which is why I'm generating English language strings in a lot of cases with code. And I also want my code, my C# to be the source of truth, or my resources that are in like defined as, you know, card resources or artifact resources. Those are the source of truth for all the English language strings. So the file, the translation file, essentially becomes a generated output from those sources of truth, the scripts and the resources. And that's the situation that I want to be in, because again, I don't want to have to manually manage this file. If I go and edit an ability, I just need to edit the ability, right? So if this ability changes, I just change the text in here, rebuild the C#, I click this button to rebuild the translations, and I get the new translation file, and we're all good. So yeah, I think it's pretty nice. I mean, it has its shortcomings, of course, but imagine having to manually manage this entire file. Like, no. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Complicated ability, you say. Okay, here's one. Weapon Master. Project Echo on all weapons if all corners of the board contain a weapon item. I actually think that would be relatively easy to do. Relatively easy to do. Let me copy that and write that down. I don't have anything that actually targets the corners of the board specifically, so I will have to add that query option, but once I have the query option in place, it'll be pretty easy. Can I have an entire cathedral that I drag around the map? I guess so. What math helps this game come to live that you use? Algebra. That's it. It's not anything too, I mean, maybe that's too flippant of an answer. Like every time you do game development, whether you're in 2D or 3D, you are going to need to do some trigonometry because, like, you know, you've got vectors pointing in certain directions and you need to check angles between things, but it's really not more complicated than algebra and trigonometry, basically. I mean, I guess, you know, when you're doing vector operations, that's technically linear algebra, but adding and multiplying vectors is a lot different than doing like matrix transformations and stuff. I am now very grateful for the Unity built-in solution, but I guess yours is even better. GetText is a common standard for translations in a lot of open source frameworks. It's also dead simple, so I prefer a proprietary solution. Yeah. That's cool, then weapons need some love. I agree. You meant life. I got you. Yeah, you know, I think people have a misconception that like programming generally is very math heavy, but it's really not outside of like very specific fields. Like when I was working as a software engineer, my entire job was basically just about manipulating and transferring data. Like that's it, right? So like you've got a front end interface where the user puts in a bunch of information, and then that information needs to be persisted to the database. And then there needs to be a bunch of APIs exposed that can fetch that information or modify that information in the future, right? And it's like, there's no math there. It's just shuffling data around and making sure that it's all set up in a nice way. And yeah, it's not, in my experience, like the kinds of programming that you do for, even for games, is like, there are very few situations that actually leverage like high level math. And usually the situations that leverage high level math are abstracted away for you in the engine. So like the physics system is something that like you just get to use without having to worry about like all the calculus that's happening under the hood to actually make the collisions work. Anyway, what was I doing? Oh, I need to test this, right? I need to test this. So yeah, I think I might do some deep dives. I will do some deep dives on YouTube for sure, but I think I'm going to do more informal deep dives on Patreon, like I said. So for those of you who are not aware, I have a Patreon page where you can support the development. I just reduced the price of the lowest tier without changing any of the perks. So if you subscribe for $3 a month, I'm going to be putting out more content that's exclusive to Patreon. So for example, I'm going to be uploading a time lapse of this cathedral pixel art. So if you want to see what that looks like, you'll have to be on Patreon to see it. And then I might do like informal deep dives that are not going to be like super polished, but I might just explore the code base and like explain what's going on. That will be available to Patreon members only as well. And you'll get access to those exclusive posts for the $3 a month tier. So, you know, I don't necessarily like gating content behind a paywall like that, but at the same time, I am self-funded and I am running out of money. So every little bit helps. And, you know, the devlogs and stuff will still be available on YouTube for free with ads. But, yeah. I love the white outline animation. Thank you. Appreciate that. I like how, I mean, this game is like, yeah. This game is the best game I've ever made. I hope it's not the best game I will ever make, but we will see. Anyway, I keep closing the game. I need to test this. I'm getting distracted. Chat is distracting me. I'm trying to work. You guys pop in here and keep bugging me while I'm trying to work. Okay. Reduce the remaining cooldown of this item by 1 second. Oh, shoot. That's not grammatically correct. 1 second. Fudge. Okay. That's fine. Given estimated to be when it's finished, that will be near the end of the year. This year for sure, but near the end of the year is the release date that I'm targeting now. which I think is definitely doable because, like I said, the only remaining things to do is to add the content and to polish the game up and like make it feel really good. So yeah, I'm definitely will be releasing this year. And that's why I'm going to try to keep this scope in check. From this point onward, it's basically just going to be tightening all the systems that I have. I do need to update the combat log, but that's just like kind of like an overhaul of an existing system. There aren't going to be any new systems that get added really, and the new stuff is just going to be content oriented, and then I'm just going to make sure to balance the heck out of it to make sure it feels very good. But this seems to be working, so I think we'll call that good. Let me just remove the clergy. Make sure this is properly doing it. Okay, that is working, and then I want to make sure that this is not going to work if I add like a skeleton warrior. I just want to make sure those filters are working, that it's only targeting clergy items. Okay, it does work. Cool, perfect. All right, we still have another innate ability to add to this guy, but dang, the abilities for this thing are taking longer than the art. I didn't think that was going to happen. Anyway, what was the other ability? Oh, I wanted to make it heal for half of all the damage dealt by undead items. So let's do heal by damage dealt by undead is equal to new composed ability. Man, this cathedral is stacked. Shouldn't it say innate passive? No, it's not a passive ability. So this is a kind of like a debate that I'm having. So the tricky part about making this a passive ability is that I guess I could make it a passive ability, but then I have like the ancient tree. Reduce the remaining cooldown of this item by seconds whenever an allied item deals damage. So I guess the thing that So there's a couple of things here. There's a deer eating a tree branch right outside my window, probably 15 feet away from me. Hello, deer. So there's a couple of problems. So there's two different types of cooldown reduction, right? There's a passive cooldown reduction, which just like it's just a straight subtraction from the overall turn cooldown. But then there are the turn cooldown reductions that happen in combat as a result of, like, for example, the incense reducing the turn cooldown of some adjacent items, right? And so those are both cooldown reduction, but they happen in two different contexts. And so whenever I use the word reduce the remaining cooldown, that is something that happens during combat. So that, in other words, it doesn't change your baseline turn cooldown, it accelerates your cooldown, right, during combat. But if it says increase or reduce the cooldown, so not remaining, and it's marked as passive, that is something that just changes the top line turn cooldown number, right? So that's one distinction. The second distinction is that non-combat abilities, the passive abilities, they aren't really supposed to do anything in combat, because when I get the list of all the abilities to execute on a card, I skip over the non-combat abilities and only do the combat abilities. And so that could be a little bit tricky if I marked this as passive, for example, and I needed this query target provider to update during combat. That would not happen. So this query target provider is only updated in the non-combat phase. So this is like whenever you move cards around. So like when you change the position of a card on the board, it reevaluates all of the non-combat abilities across all the cards on your board. And then once those are reevaluated, they stay that way until the board state changes again. So if I ever had a situation where I wanted to reduce the remaining cooldown based on some specific query, it would be using the old outdated query from the last time you updated the board rather than the current up-to-date state that's currently happening during combat. So that's kind of the distinction that I'm making. Any cooldown that gets reduced as a result of something happening during combat is not going to be a passive ability, but anything that changes the top line number outside of combat will be a passive ability. For the Patreon exclusive content, could probably give a 2-week exclusive and then release to YouTube. Yeah, I could do that. I mean, Patreon, I already released the YouTube videos early on Patreon, so. But yeah. Do you do software engineering as a job currently? No, currently, no, I don't. No, I'm doing this full time. Patreon folks get a sneak peek, and then your channel has a chance to share and grow your audience, to which you can then point them at the Patreon if they want content sooner. Yeah, that is an option. We'll see. I'm still trying to figure out the Patreon thing. But I was thinking the Patreon content would be more like informal, like not, I don't want to say like not high effort, but like things that won't have a level of polish that like goes into the YouTube videos, you know? I normally associate the word passive with something that happens outside of the item's own execution, so there's not an active component to it. That makes it a little confusing, like it has to activate first to get that ability. Yeah, I can see that too. Well, we might be able to do that. Let me do this other ability first, and then we'll come back to it. Do I want to do this? No, I don't want to do this. I want to do damage dealt provider, I think. Oh, this isn't going to work, is it? Shoot. I've been stumped again. So I don't have a way of currently going into the turn history and getting everything that dealt damage based on like a query parameter. I can only just get like the total damage dealt. So maybe we will need to use the damage tracker. I don't know if I like this approach, though. Damage dealt tracker. Okay. Let me write this down before I forget. We'll just implement it the way that I know how for now, and then we'll... Okay, so is ally... I'm going to add a new public bool cards share board. Let's do R cards allies. Card... Other card. Okay, this can be x.execution context all R cards allies. That makes sense. What in the heck is happening here? Okay. is undead. Buy card is not equal to null. Actually, let's do buy card has tag, has secondary tag. Secondary card tag dot undead. Return not is ally. Actually, x.execution context .target board x.execution context .get board for card x.listener card var is received damage is equal to x.damage context .receiver board is equal to target board. We don't care about the on triggered, I don't think. Okay, so let's copy this. Why is this being weird? Yeah, whatever. Var dynamic heal is equal to new dynamic magnitude ability, damage dealt tracker, new heal 0. We're going to do damage dealt tracker dot get value divided by 2. Generic value provider. Okay. Heal by damage dealt by undead. We want the damage dealt tracker first, and then we want the dynamic heal here. Okay. Description keywords dot capitalize. Description keywords dot heal 0. Heal for X. Damage dealt. I don't know about that one. Damage divisor. We don't have any scaling, but let's see. We'll make those undead. All right, I think it's almost done. Oh, this needs to be damage. This needs to be description keywords damage. Ah. Now that you can read the executions as they come by card type, you could just immediately heal when an undead item deals damage so that it acts as a damage reducer. Yeah, that could work. You're welcome. How you day? Who die? Considering you're doing this full time, has there been any specific important life, career events, or choices that helped lead up to where you are now? No, I mean, I think just the fact that, you know, I was employed as a software engineer, I was able to save up a bunch of money. So it's not like, you know, like it's relatively not risky because I have a good safety net. So like there's no risk of me like losing my house or anything. That's because I built up a good safety net while I was employed. So I guess I would just say that was like, I don't know if that's a good decision, but it's just like saving up that money made it so that when this opportunity came up where I could spend my time making games, I was able to take that without having a whole lot of stress about it. You know what I mean? Why the double curly braces? Because when you're doing a string interpolation, if you want literal curly braces in the string, you have to escape it with another pair of curly braces. So that's all. All right, let's see if this works. Those have a longer cooldown. Okay, so that's 10, so it should heal 5. It healed 1. Okay, why did it heal 1? Oh, I'm only counting... Oh. I'm not counting the total damage. I'm just counting the amount of... Oh, okay, so that's... Right. Shoot, I'm not actually tallying up the total damage. So now I'm in a weird situation where my turn history doesn't allow me to sum up the damage by like some kind of filter like from undead items. But my damage dealt tracker here doesn't allow me to accumulate the total damage dealt according to those filters. So I need to fix that. I guess I'll have to think about that one. The general structure of it is working. It's just like this is not. Well, that sucks. All right. I mean, the ability is there. I just need to get that correct number. That's all. Goodness gracious. Anyway, I have a meeting that I need to get to in about 10 minutes here, so I'm going to end the stream there. I'm sorry that we didn't really get much done except for the cathedral, but it's a tough one. But like I said, I think... you know, even though these abilities are a little bit hard to get working, once it's working in one case, as long as they're generic enough, I will be able to use those in all like future abilities I may want to make. So it's a good investment because it does open up the design space for the kinds of abilities that I can do. So yeah, it's well worth the effort, especially like, you know, because I want to end up, like I said, with like 300 to 400 items in the game, and I want most of them to have a unique ability that's not quite like any ability you can find on any other item, because I think that's going to increase the strategic depth of the game a lot. So yeah, adding more of these capabilities is just going to help serve that goal, but it does take a little bit of effort to get right. You're welcome, Chamberlain Pie. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. Again, you can wishlist Alka Mortis on Steam. The link is below. And again, I am going to be putting some more exclusive content on Patreon. So if you want to subscribe to Patreon, you could do that. The supporter tier is only $3 a month now. So that would be greatly appreciated support. And I'll be putting up some interesting stuff for you as the development continues. So yeah, check those things out. Of course, you can also like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow on Twitch, all that good stuff. And yeah, hope you all have a great day. And I will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Okay, bye-bye.